Sure. Perfect.
Just for the sake of the recording, we'll just like pop
Yeah.
back over here real quick. Again, building a story brand. And again, important to note, this is going to go across all facets of your business as far as marketing goes. So just some basic underlying principles here to kind of set us up. And I'm going to pull my notes out because again, this is newer stuff to us. How many of you out there, other than just our team, how many are you familiar with these concepts in marketing? How many of you have read Donald Miller, or have kind of explored some of this story branding stuff? I think you're going to find it really smart because I think coming up with content is really hard sometimes for people. Again, we know like pretty websites don't sell things. Pretty pieces of marketing don't sell things. How many of you have spent hours on creating some beautiful piece of content and had no conversion on it, and you've thought that was a dumb old waste of my time? I love to raise my hand to my own questions. Somebody should put that on my resume. It's my favorite thing to do. We know we have to use words to sell things, right? We have to have impactful words. Trying to figure out what words to select can, I think, be a challenge, especially for agents, because think about all the hats you're wearing as a real estate agent. Think about when you're marketing to your sphere of influence, all of the capacities that you could use, right? You could come from a type of home, like the home inspector, the home visual inspector hat. You could come from the finance perspective, right? You could be sharing about mortgage rates this week. So that's a whole different hat than property conditions, right? You could be sharing something community based, which is where we like to spend a lot of our time on our team. You could be sharing something from 30,000 feet in the sky about how homeownership is an important piece to wealth building. Like there's so many hats we wear as realtors. So there's a lot of different ways that you can come across trying to market something, and it can be really confusing for your audience because you don't know, they don't know which hat you're wearing at any given time that you're providing information. So that's something to keep in mind is, really thinking about who your audience is. How do I make sure that the hat that I'm wearing conveys that story? How can I explain that? And one of the really great marketing pieces that I think you can share and take some notes here, you can share like, what does a real estate agent do? If you haven't sent that marketing piece to your database, like that's a really great place to start. So then I would ask you, do you know what a real estate agent does? Can you describe all the hats that you wear on any given day? Sometimes the general public just doesn't truly understand all the components of what it is that we do. So sometimes my marketing pieces look like I'm a financial advisor. Sometimes my marketing pieces look like I am, like a home inspector. Sometimes my my content pieces will look like I'm a community, driver. It really, like, given any given day, my marketing is all over the board anyways. So again, if your information is not clear, it doesn't really matter how deep you go on the information or how attractive the graphics are. It's still going to get missed. And I think we as real estate agents have a really tough time doing this because we're not selling a single product, right? We're not just selling a home. We do so many other things in our job capacity that comes through in our marketing. The essentially, again, and this is what I think is important, is there could be agents that are marketing to the same data set that you're marketing to. It's not going to be a race for the clearest product. And this is, I think, really important. Like, people are not sitting there racing to you as quickly as they can. They're actually going to go to that offer that becomes the clearest. So it's not who gets the message out fastest, it's who gets that message out clearest. And what we're finding is that our marketing is oftentimes way too complicated. What we think is a value add to our consumer may miss the mark by a landslide because we just truly don't understand how to get the clarity that they need. So the big things that we look at here with our marketing, why do so many things fail, is because we actually fail to focus on things that aid survival first, the ability to thrive, and then to be accepted, right? So essentially, if your marketing pieces aren't going back to something that's very clear cut on what is something that's needed to survive, thrive, or be accepted, then we're going to miss the mark. So one of the best examples of this that I think is given in the book, he talks about if you go into a new space, right? Like yesterday, I went into this really cool music venue for this event. I couldn't tell you a lot of the features of that space, right? I couldn't tell you probably like what stained the floor. I couldn't even tell you what the floors were. I don't think I could tell you what color the walls were. there's a lot of things about that space I couldn't tell you, but I can tell you where the bathrooms were, and I can tell you where the doors were, right? My subconscious brain yesterday took in all of this information around my surroundings, and then it filtered out what I needed for basic survival. I just told you, I knew where the bathroom was. I knew where the exits were. I was keenly aware that my back was to that exit. It actually at one point became a pretty tight room. It was very well done, but I think they might have missed the mark on the numbers. And like, there were points where I remember like looking around and being like, okay, if I have to get out of here, like, what is my path of least resistance, right? Why was my brain doing that? Like, there was no inherent danger. I was at an event, like with people that I knew, but that's just what our subconscious brain does. It's constantly looking for things that are going to allow us to, number one, survive, right? After we feel like we have that, then we're able to thrive and be accepted. So our marketing pieces need to focus on these three things. Sometimes we make stuff so fluffy, so extra. If we could speak to the subconscious brain on things like this, we could get a lot further. So that's the number one reason why we mostly fail in our marketing. The second is we cause our consumers to burn way too many calories trying to figure out what it is we're trying to tell them. I am long-winded as F. You guys have sat on these calls with me for 2 hours, and you know I'm long-winded. I love words. I like to craft them. I like to give multiple examples. Like, I struggle with clear and concise marketing. I burn people out before they can get to the message oftentimes, and I've got to be really conscious of it in my marketing. If your consumers are spending more than a few seconds trying to figure out what your marketing piece is about, you've already missed it. You've already missed it. And one of the things that he gives us is kind of a way to figure it out is a grunt test. I'll show that to you in a second. But at its core, if you can only take 2 takeaways here, you have to make sure that the marketing piece talks about survival, and you have to make it easy. So when you're doing that piece of information on why do you need a CMA, right? You've got to make sure that you're taking it back to its most core reason of, well, why is someone getting a CMA? Potentially because they're looking to sell or buy a home. Why are they doing that? Because they need to have a safe place to live and house their family, right? You always are going to have to go back to that very basic element of why. And then when you're doing that marketing piece, you need to make sure that that messaging is clear enough in the beginning so that they understand, why is this important to me? And I failed on many accounts sending out marketing to my sphere of influence that hasn't done these 2 things, because we get comfortable and we think they know us. They know what we do. They know my value. So I'm just giving them some kind of gentle reminder. What I'm telling you here is that if you can focus on doing these 2 things, you'll go much further. Your messaging will last longer, and you'll hold their attention for a lot longer as well. So buying decisions are made on what people hear, not what we tell them, right? So that's another tricky part about marketing is I can get done with the marketing piece. I can show it to someone and be like, see, do you get it? It's about this. And if I'm having to say, see, do you get it? It's about this. I've already missed them. So again, remembering that it's what they're perceiving, not just what you're telling them. So it doesn't matter how clearly you explain something in a marketing piece, still being able to, I think, again, pass that off to people in your world and saying, hey, what do you hear? What do you hear in this? What do you see in this before you start sending stuff off? Use your team members, use your people. Because again, we screw this up all the time. We think that we've got them because we've told something correctly, when in fact they haven't. And again, another just really big underlying key cursor for why we are even studying this today is business has an enemy, and it's noise. Well, it's so noisy out there right now. We were talking, Joe Turco did a great job talking about this yesterday. He's like, everyone right now is a guru. Everyone right now is a coach. Everyone right now is able to tell you how to run your real estate business. How many of you feel like you are being run in 18 different directions by online influencers telling you how to run your business? Get on social media, get off social media, make calls, don't make calls. I mean, there was one I literally was like back and forth between Ricky Carruth and Amy Gregory yesterday. And like Ricky Carruth is like, he's like, you have to pick up the phone and call. And Amy Gregory is like, well, if these agents are telling people to call, then why aren't they cold calling agents to tell them to call? Like, it was the most like crazy, like back and forth banter almost between these 2 Instagram accounts yesterday. I was like, I don't know what's right either. I do know it's right, but there's just a lot of noise. And it's the same thing in our market. Like, we as agents, again, like most of us didn't come into this business because we were good marketers. Raise your hand if you came into this business because you're like, I'm really good at marketing. I know Wendy Payton on our team has a marketing background as well. Like there's a few people that have good marketing backgrounds. Amy Gregory is one of them. Like she has a marketing background. She got into real estate because there's an opportunity to market. Most people don't get into real estate to market. I didn't get into real estate to market. So what happens in our industry, especially, is I think it's extra noisy. I think the marketing in real estate is super noisy. And here's why. Because we have a bunch of non-marketers marketing things. So most of the people that are doing the marketing, we don't even know some of these rules and these concepts that even a skilled marketer would know. And then again, I just told you, as a realtor who doesn't have a marketing background, you also are doing about 8 things in your job, and all of that messaging is coming out. And so real estate to me has just gotten super, super noisy when it comes to trying to cut through and ensure that clear messaging is there. So one of the things we're going to do today is try to help you create a rhythm to your marketing so that it's not noisy, so that in fact, it's actually very clear and concise. Now, here's my best example of what we're going to do today. So if and I'm looking at a piano over here at my friend's house, like if I literally were to go over there and just like hit a bunch of keys with no rhyme or reason or plan, most of you would not call that music. You would just call it noise. Fair? If I went and just banged on the piano with no timing, with no key signature, with no plan, it would be noise. If you got a bunch of 8-year-olds together with their recorders and you told them just to start playing them, we all would categorize that as noise. And that is the best way that I can describe, I think, real estate marketing as a whole, is like it's a bunch of us playing recorders with no plan and hoping that somehow that message is going to ring true. Now, music, and this obviously I was a musical theater major in college, so this is something that I love this analogy, but music is basically, if you go and study music theory, it's just a set of rules, right? It tells you that if you're going to play in this key signature, these are the notes that you need. If you want to modulate from that key signature to another, here's the rule of how you do that. You keep it in 4 beats per measure, 3 beats per measure, 6 beats. There's all these rules to music, right? That's why most people can't just go sit down at an instrument and make music, because there are rules that they don't know. And so the same thing actually occurs in marketing. Just like music is a way to create rules to prevent noise, story has been around for thousands of years. There are finite rules to how you create story. And if you use it in your marketing, it actually is a concrete sense making mechanism. And for me, like when I found this, and I hope you feel this way when we're done, I felt so peaceable about how I market things, because suddenly I was like, oh, there are rules here. There are rules that I can follow to ensure that I get the outcome that I want. And again, for those of you that are struggling to figure out what does my content need to look like, I hope today will be one of those things where you're like, oh, I got it. I know what to do now. I just need to create story. And so that's what we're going to focus on. Any questions thus far? Any comments thus far that you want to chime in on? Anything not make sense? Okay, great. So one of the things that we're going to talk about right now are the like kind of 3 crucial questions that we have to answer. And this is going to sound very philosophical and very high in the sky. And if you're not there, I'm sorry, we're going to get tactical in a minute. The end of will be much more tactical than it is here, but some kind of like crucial questions. One thing that you have to understand about story branding is there is a hero to the story. We're going to talk about where that comes in, but the 3 questions and get these down. What does the hero want? Who is that villain? And what will the hero's life look like once we're done? If those 3 questions can't be answered, like within the, like in a movie, right? Within the first 15 to 20 minutes, like chances are like you didn't watch it, like it was over. If you like, think about it, you go watch a movie and you have to know these 3 things within 15 or 20 minutes or the whole thing is done. Like it's not going to work. So in our marketing, right, which we don't have people's attention for 2 hours or whatever, we have to do this like the fastest. Like this has to be done within a matter of seconds. And so this is where we talk about this grunt test, right? Literally, like you need to be able to convey, what do you offer? How will it make my life better? And what do I need to do to buy it? If you can't get that out of your marketing, if that couldn't be grunted by a basic caveman, right, in a couple of seconds from your marketing, then you need to scrap it, start over. And I'm so guilty of this because I love fluffy marketing pieces. I do. They mirror my words. But if you can't get these 3 things answered, just like if you went to a movie and you couldn't identify these 3 crucial questions, then your marketing is missing that mark and they're not going to follow you through to the end where you may have some kind of offer or call to action. So again, think about it this way. You go into a movie. Can you identify these 3 questions in the first 15 to 20 minutes? You go into a marketing piece, you have seconds, you have mere seconds, and you need someone as basic as a caveman, right? That could identify this and grunt the answers. One thing is, you can use this tool. John Sheplack has shared this with us multiple times. Even some of the most sophisticated financial advisor groups in the country, their websites are built on a, well, let's do a poll. What grade reading level do you think that they target? Chime in the chat.
4th.
Yeah, someone got that right. 4th grade. 4th grade. You should, yeah, Kristen, probably 3rd. Maybe we should even be going to 2nd because like this might be based on America of past. Maybe we need like 2nd grade. There is a wonderful website called Hemingway. It's not an app, it's just a website. Anytime you do marketing, you can copy and paste your information, put it into the Hemingway app, and you can it'll give you a summary. It'll highlight words. Like if you've got complicated adverbs in there, again, like for you, most of you, that's not complex verbiage, but for the general public, again, if we're trying to hit that 4th grade reading level. So one really amazing tool you can use is Hemingway. It will kind of highlight, it'll tell you where you're at. Now, if you want to make this even more streamlined, you can copy and paste that into ChatGPT, and you can say, ChatGPT, can you please put this text on a 4th grade reading level for me? It will do something where it's like, I can da 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 da. It won't tell you exactly that's what it's doing, but it's exactly what it's doing, and it will regenerate that for you. So you don't need to sit there and do the grunt test yourself. Let AI do that for you. ChatGPT can absolutely take whatever you write and put it into a 4th grade reading level, go throw it into Hemingway to double check it, and then you're good to go. So make sure you get both of those processes down when you're doing any kind of copy. I would argue it's the same with your property listings. Like on every single level, your marketing should be on a 4th grade reading level. That should be it in order to reach your audience. And some of you will say, well, my audience is more sophisticated than that. And I will tell you, it doesn't matter. Some of the most sophisticated brands in America follow this rule, 4th grade reading level. Does that surprise anyone? Because it surprised. I thought the fancier I was, the better my marketing would look.
Stop it.
It up. So let's talk about the framework for our story brand. So this is a simple sentence. If you put it all together, we're talking about a character who has a problem and meets a guide who gives them a plan and calls them to action that helps them avoid failure and ends in success. Every single story, every single movie, every single advertisement on TV, every single thing now, you're going to start to see this pattern. All right. So let's do this. Let's like walk through a couple examples. So you're on your couch watching a game and a Mr. Clean commercial comes on, right? And it's, I mean, I can visualize it. I always think it's like a cute little, like, you know, lady with a headband and like a cute outfit. And she's like trying to clean something, right? And it's not coming clean. She's the character. She has a problem. Who shows up? Mr. Clean. Mr. Clean gives them the plan. He passes over his product, says to put it to use. That avoided her from having all of the dirtiness in her home and ends in success. When you start to see this, you will start to recognize that every single piece of advertising like starts to follow this framework, right? For some reason, our industry has just missed it. You go see a movie, again, same thing, right? A character has a problem, meets a guide, gives them a plan, calls them to action, helps them to avoid failure and ends in success. It happens every single time that you go watch a story. These are the rules that 100% will help your advertising get more clear. And I'm very sorry, you'll never enjoy anything else ever again, because all you'll do is you'll look for Storybrand in every single thing that's out there. So here's the big thing that you need to take away. If you don't take away anything from today, take this away. The customer is the hero. Your sphere of influence is the hero. You guys don't wake up every morning, and we talked about this a little bit last week, but now I can give you even more context. You guys don't wake up every morning being like, I wonder how this hero's story is going, and how's their hero story going, and what's their. You wake up every morning as the protagonist of your own story. Who woke up this morning and was the hero of your own story? I know that I did. My husband woke up this morning. He is the hero of his own story. What we often try to do here is we actually try to make our brand a hero in our marketing, and we're missing the mark completely. As a protagonist walking down the street every single day, I am keenly aware of other players in my life. But I'm not focused on their outcomes. I'm focused on my outcome, right? That's not to say I'm a selfish person who doesn't care for other people. I'm just saying that is how we work, right? It is our story. We are the protagonists of our own story. And so what happens oftentimes is that we'll take our brand and we, for some reason, feel like that needs to be the hero. How many of you go on listing appointments and the whole freaking thing is just like, here's all the things I do. Here's all the things that I do. Here's my plan. Here's my, this is that. And it's all like, look how amazing my brand is. Look how amazing my brand is. Some of the best real estate agents you'll meet will go on appointments oftentimes, and they won't have those listing presentations, or they'll send them over in advance so that the people know that they all exist. And they spend the entire presentation needing to understand, what does this customer need? And we miss this mark oftentimes because it has nothing to do with our brand. It has everything to do with the customer, because they are the hero in their own story. And I think that this is, if you get nothing else out of today, I hope you get this out of today. And I hope that it's refreshing for you, because I hope you realize that you don't have to be the hero. You just get to help someone else be the hero. And again, that was very comforting for me. So we have to create for our hero. Our hero has to have a problem, right? Our hero must have a problem, and we have to identify that problem in order to move forward. If the customers are going to be attracted to us, it's the same reason that the hero gets pulled into a story. There has to be a solution to a problem that can help them return to a peaceful and safe life. Now, I'm not saying every piece of marketing that you're going to create is going to drastically change the outcome of someone's life, but I do think one of the things that you need to think about before you're working on these marketing pieces, before you're writing this handwritten card, before you're putting something up on a website, before you're doing whatever it is can you identify the problem that your customer or your sphere of influence or whatever it is, again, this works in all facets of your business. Can you identify the problem that they have, a problem that they have, and can you solve it? If you start here, instead of saying, oh my gosh, I really want to do a marketing piece on current interest rates. If you can engineer it from what is the problem and then create it versus saying, I want to create this content and then try to back it up, you'll do much better. How many of you believe affordability is a problem for first-time home buyers right now? I hope everyone's raising their hand. I see a lot of black screens. Affordability is a big problem for first-time home buyers right now. If you start from that problem and build out your marketing versus realizing, oh, I want to start with something on interest rates, think how much better that marketing piece could be, right? This is where we create this gap in our characters. Everyone take a second and you can drop it in the chat or you can chime in. What are some other problems that you believe, and really take it to your SOI? What are some problems that your SOI or subsections of your SOI are having right now in their lives that we could potentially solve through some marketing? I'll chat. We just talked about empty nester doubt. I just went through one of these appointments last week where she's like, I know it's time, but I just don't want to let go of this house and all of our space and all of the things. What are some other problems maybe your SOI is having? How to start investing. That was a good one. So Kristen, let's take your how to start investing and kind of move from there. So you, and if you can maybe chime in, interest rates again. Yeah, absolutely. Those are problems that everyone's having if they have move needs. So Kristen, let's take yours on how to start investing. Can you give us some if you don't mind coming on, can you give us some context of what your SOI, like what subsection of your SOI is this like particularly talking about, and like how did you identify it? Because I know this story for you, and I think it's really interesting.
Unmute. Yeah, I mean, I think that I share kind of a similar SOI with some others on our team that are sort of that been homeowners for close to 30 years, had multiple properties, but kind of still at the point where, you know, maybe you've got a little bit of extra equity, but, you know, just a little lost on where to start with that. What's the best way to use that money? Is that going to be in a short-term rental? Is that in a long-term rental? Is that in a property that's near where my kids are living? Is that something that I'm going to also use as a place that I'm in a vacation, or am I strictly using it as investment? So it's kind of that range of like all over the place. Where do I even start kind of place?
Yeah, because I know we've been talking with you about you have kids in college in other cities and potentially buying investment property there. And we recognize that's probably a good subsection. You've recognized that hero in your sphere of influence. You know that there are others that are experiencing the same problem of affordability and, you know, campus housing even, and is there a solution for it?
Mm-hmm.
So I think here we kind of touched on it. So if we take this college route, right? Like the easy, like quick external problem, right, was you had a kid going off to college. You knew it was going to be a huge investment to put him in campus housing. The chances of him ending off campus at some point were probably high, and then you were going to pay probably some in a college town, we call them slumlords at that point, like, you know, pay their mortgage to help them build their wealth. So that your kid had somewhere to stay. That's a pretty like simple external problem, right? And you know multiple heroes in your database that have the same, they're going to have the same story. So that's the external problem, and that's a quick, easy thing to jump into. Most of the time when we go through those external problems, sorry, I was looking for the slide, it's a quick, just like, oh, I'm hungry, right? Oh, I need this, I need something. And the external problem is a quick hit. That's what most companies try to sell to. And I think it's what most real estate agents try to sell to is like, oh, the interest rates are high, right? And then, oh, so you can't buy a home, external problem. What we really want to start diving into is looking at some internal problems. That's actually what causes people to make decisions and start doing something. And we'll go into this a little bit more in depth in a minute, but our customers are really actually looking for the answer to the internal problem. Kristen's really not looking for the external solution of where is my kid going to live. She's battling with, should I be involved in this somehow? Should I be using this opportunity to leverage maybe our financial situation to build some wealth? And then we have to go even higher and go to a philosophical problem of, you know, I should be able to do this, right? I should be in a position where I can do this. And so we're going to talk about walking through those 3 levels of problems. If you just try to solve the external with your marketing, you'll miss it. People don't make buying decisions on external problems. They make them on internal problems every single time. So we got to identify that. So again, this takes a little bit more prep work than just throwing a template in Canva and throwing your face on there and saying, oh, I have marketing. And that's what we're going to try to solve. So we're trying to create this story gap, right? Again, we're trying to figure out what this hero, what the problem is and what they're trying to solve. We need to make sure that we understand what basic survival means, right? And be able to talk about these things. So if you're looking at some bullet points to actually make impactful marketing, this is probably one of the most important slides you'll find. Can your marketing solve problems? Like, can it conserve financial resources? And this is where agents miss it, because we have answers to most of these problems. Think about if you were selling dishwashers, right? Like, and now we're talking about selling homes. I was at the rally yesterday, and one of the agents was talking about how frustrated she gets when agents get distracted. She's like, you guys are selling the most freaking expensive thing out there. You are selling the most essential thing, right, to survival, safe, like a safe place to live. We can solve all these things, right? We're not selling anything inconsequential. Like, we are selling something that solves all these problems. So take this down and make sure that this is something that your marketing can answer to. Can Can you conserve financial resources? Can you help them with that? Can you help them conserve time? Can you help them accumulate resources? Can you help and fuel that innate desire to be generous? How many of you base a lot of marketing on community outreach? Rachel Cornett. How many of you sell your community in a lot of your marketing? People have an innate desire to be generous. How can you help them tap into that? That's a huge one for those of you that are very community minded. That was a big takeaway from me from this book, is that the general population has an innate desire to be generous. They just don't know how to go tap into that. And we could actually provide that for them. And then a desire for meaning, right? I mean, the American dream, all of the things are set up for you to be successful here with what does this survival mean? And then ultimately we're going to move into where do we want this brand, our brand, to take you, right? Because our brand is going to come in and become a guide. So we're here again talking about the problem. This is a really great note. The more you talk about their problems, the more they'll talk about your brand. Some of you aren't going to like that because it's going to feel very negative, right? The more you talk about their problems, the more they'll talk about your brand. So if we go back to those couple of things that we were just talking about, as far as people's innate needs to do things, if you can spend more of your time in that world, you're going to get more of their attention for longer. All right, let's talk about villains in your marketing, because you got to identify them. Those of you that talked about high interest rates, there's your villain. The problem is affordability, right? The villain, the root cause, right? Something that's relatable, that's real. You can't make it up. You can't tell people that it's hard to buy when interest rates were 2.5%. Interest rates couldn't be your villain in 2021. It can be now. The villain's got to be that root cause. It's got to be relatable, singular, and real as to the problem. You identify this villain, you can actually unify yourself as the guide and your hero together, so that you guys are on the same team. So I know a lot of people, I mean, look, I'm the same way. I'm super optimistic. I'm glass all the way full all the time. I don't like to harp and sell on negative things. But again, this isn't you selling something. This is making sure that your story is clear and every single person that you're speaking to is going to understand the role of a villain in a story, because it makes sense. So here we get back into those problems that we were talking about earlier, right? Your hero has to have that internal, external, and philosophical problem that you can answer. And if you'll start your marketing from who is my hero and what is their problem, it will be significantly smarter. Again, I told you earlier, we think that people make decisions on external, but they actually make all of their decisions on internal problems. And then that philosophical one is just something that continues to guide them in that direction to take action. So let's look at a couple examples here in our sphere of influence. So some of you said, I think, Andrea, you pulled this out. Talk to me a little bit about like finding the unicorn of land and home is a big one in your sphere. Talk to me about that.
Because the affordability is, we have a budget of, I've had them say 325,000, but
Okay.
can you please find me a horse farm?
Mm-hmm.
Not in a subdivision that has a house on it.
Mm-hmm.
Can it be at least 5 acres? And I'm thinking in my mind, you really want me to, just pull something out of a hat that needs a little bit more, either fewer acres or more money, but they just get so set. And sometimes it's hard to convince them, you can't get a horse farm for $275,000.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's already ready to throw them on there, and you can live in the house and it's completely fine.
Yeah.
But
So you've got the external problem of, I want this type of home. The internal problem for them is probably more like, why haven't we positioned ourselves to be able to afford what we want at this point in life, right? And then that philosophical is always going to be like, I should be able to have this, right? This should be an option for me. Always should, or should always be part of that philosophical. Let's go a little bit more green. Let's go like not someone that's looking to buy or sell a home. Let's just go into someone's like subsection into their SOI. What is a group in your SOI that's not like sales driven, that has a problem that your marketing could solve? Anybody have one? I have one. I have people that have their past clients now, so they've moved into our sphere of influence that have moved to Fuquay from Raleigh or some other area in the Triangle, right? I think that some of their problem could be having the opportunity to plug into their community, right? So their external problem is they want to be more involved in their community. If I know that's a subsection and that's a problem that my SOI has, then I know that I can speak to that external problem. That's a quick thing. I can invite them to brews and barbecues this weekend, right? I could send an invitation out to that subsection. We already talked about how we have those divisions of people in our group. And really, though, what I know is I'm doing is I'm giving them an external outlet to be able to come and participate, but I'm really giving them an internal solution of, I want to be part of my community, right? That's definitely an internal thing. The external problem is, what am I going to do this weekend? The internal is, how can I be a part of my community? The philosophical, right, goes into that. I should be here to contribute to this community that I get to call home. Does that make sense? So start thinking about, that's another reason why segmenting our database, which we talked about the last week or so, should give you some inspiration. You honestly could go from there this week and write out 4 or 5 problems that you feel like any of those subsections of your database could have. I would encourage you to do that work. Literally go through, find some of your subsections that have the majority of people, that have the bigger numbers, and say, okay, what are some problems that this hero has that my marketing could solve? And that should give you some ideas. All right, this is where your brand is going to come in and you're going to become the guide. My team has seen this video. I want to play it because I think it's really impactful and I think it will help you demonstrate why your marketing has to get smarter. So I'm going to hit play and hopefully you're going to be able to see it. Fingers crossed.
Just thought about like how crazy this is, how this is like the beginning of the new world. Story that changed the course of history today. Yes, the last stand. Last alcohol for creativity. Yes, the broken home. Inspired.
Every great movement started with a group of people being able to get together and really just make a stand.
Everyone here is, that term icons, but we all at one point were in love with music. You can't make it to what we've accomplished without having that love of music be the foundation. I think it's one of the things that sets us aside from someone that's a tech company that's selling advertisement or selling hardware. Right now, they're writing a story for us. We need to write the story for ourselves.
See that as that's so important. This collaboration feels so egoless. Everybody's having a conversation. We really do have an opportunity to change the way we all experience art.
We're going to come together and we're going to take a stand and we're going to give people quality and great things and great experiences.
We'll push the things that happen on the internet further.
This is really musicians making music and it's about music and there's no end game.
Maybe it sounds like a cliche, but it's about putting art back into the forefront. It's about bringing humanity back to being an artist, not technology, art. Human art.
Spoke to a lot of people outside of the industry, and everyone was like, "What? So like this thing that everyone wanted, and everyone fared. If these artists can sit in the room together, if the game changes forever, and it happened today."
All right, so let me give you some backstory on this launch. I only learned about it really through studying this. So Jay-Z created this streaming service. It's called Tidal. And the premise here was that these artists were going to be able to get out of labels' ways and be able to stream their own music without the fees, without all of the gatekeepers of their music. So here's the problem. Who's the customer here that they were looking to reach? Is it all the musicians that were a part of the platform, or was it Anna Powell, Rachel Cornett, Gwenny Powell? It was us, right? They were trying to sell the streaming service to us. They wanted me to pay $14 a month or whatever it is to pay for Tidal so that I could stream their music. What just from what you just saw, who was the hero of the advertising? It was them, right? I mean, you literally just watched 2 minutes of them flashing, talking about how amazing this was, how this was a game changer, and it did nothing to me. What they tried to do is they tried to be the hero, right? They tried to be the hero, but they were then trying to sell their services to the general population. And it was, I mean, I know John likes to correct me and say he sold it for a profit. But most of us are still listening to our music on Spotify. Anyone here a title streamer? I'm not. This is an example of where we work so hard. They worked so hard to make this such a hero, right? And they told that story very well of like, oh, we're the heroes of our story here. But the problem is they weren't the ones buying it. We were. And so we were kind of cut out of that. So this is one of the most, to me, essential like explanations of why you don't need to make, I'm just going to pick on some names, Miranda, like .com, the hero, like Finder and Flip Flops doesn't have to be the hero. APRE doesn't have to be the hero. And I think to me, that was very comforting because I realized that I didn't have to constantly be finding ways to evolve, make my brand this much better, because ultimately it's about the consumer in general. So I think that's a really good reminder of where this can absolutely go flat. Let me scroll over. Let me go, tech. All right. So here's the things that I think you guys will love. How many of you got into real estate because you wanted to help people? That's what most people say. Just raise your hand. Yeah, most of us got into real estate because we actually did want to help people, right? I mean, the commission checks as of today are not terrible. like we got into real estate to help others. So here's what I think you can really take some solace in as far as your marketing goes, because those of us that really want to help people, oftentimes that empathy element is so important. So these are the two components that are most important to being a good guide, because that's who you are. Your brand becomes the guide, right? In our story of a hero who has a problem, who meets a guide, who has a plan that calls them to action and saves them from demise so they can end in success, our brand gets to be the guide. And that to me is so powerful, because now I really have to focus on my brand being two things. It needs to be authoritative, right? It needs to have authority. It needs to be something that people are trusting of. At the same time, though, it has to be empathetic. And for most of us that got into this business to help people, I think this is a really nice add. And this is where I get to spend most of my time. So empathy, right, is an active voice. And this is where realtors get it wrong. And this is where our marketing gets it wrong a lot of times. Empathy should be in an active voice. We should tell them, I understand you. In fact, if you go to my website right now, which has been StoryBranded, apowellrealestate.com, you will see underneath a beautiful picture of our team, it says one of our core values is empathetic. We see you, we understand you. Like, we put that voice very active on the front screen of our website, because oftentimes what agents do is we get this backwards. How many of you are really good at actually getting your authority out into your marketing? It's not hard, right? Like we send the testimonials. We'll send text saying our team has the most market share in this area. We're the most local. We're this, we're that. We're very good at often telling our audiences that we're on point when it comes to authority. And then we use a passive voice for our empathy, because we just expect that they get that we're empathetic. Because that I'm sure everyone on this call is a very empathetic person. So you take the assumption that they know that about you, and you take the assumption that they don't know anything about your authority. And we get this so wrong. What we really should be doing is we should be using an active voice for empathy. So your marketing should absolutely tell them that you understand them. First and foremost, in your leftover space, you should be more passive with the authority. You should have some brief testimonials. You can have some brief statistics, awards, logos of other businesses you've worked with if you're like a B2B business. But your authority should be much more of a passive voice. If you go, and I'm actually going to pull it up because I feel like we have a really good example of this that I want to share with you. I'm terrified I'll never get back to the screen, but we're going to try it. If you go to our website, this piece right here is one of those. Empathy is one of our core values. We see you, we hear you, we know you, right? That's first. And then we just have these subtle, little ratings underneath. There's the authority. The authority is subtle, right? The empathy is very active. Again, this goes through all of our website. If you have a chance to look at it, is all Storybrand compliant now. We've worked on that, especially with our buyer and seller packets. But this is where agents get it wrong. We assume that they understand this about us and that they really want to hear more about this. See if you can flip that in some of your marketing and see what happens and see what changes. All right, so when they meet a guy, they need to be able to say, can I trust this person? Again, that's answered by empathy. And then can I respect this person? That's answered by authority. So if we go back and look, that passive voice, that is answering the can I respect this? But the most important, the first question that you've got to answer is, can I trust this person? Now, I don't believe that this works without either. Let me tell you with your sphere of influence marketing, how you get this done. You get the first one done with those handwritten cards. When a pet dies, when something happens, when they win, their kid wins a soccer game, whatever it is that prompts that kind of communication, your handwritten cards absolutely 100% will check off that top box. The calls will check off that top box. The second box is going to be checked off more so by your monthly mailers and your monthly e-newsletters and more digital style marketing in your emails. Because you can use this, can I respect this person answered by authority with this passive voice. You can do that with some of the marketing pieces that we've shared, like market stats, things like that. But you absolutely, and this is where my business took off. I used to just do this top piece. I used to just focus on the, can I trust this person? That's how I started building my business. I had a great return from it. Oh, so sorry. But it certainly didn't do everything. Let me go back. When I added this, can I respect this person, this answer by authority with those monthly mailers, that's when my business took off. Because this is the component of them meeting their guide. You are their guide. All right. So let's review. We have a hero, right? That's your database. That's the people in your world. You can subsection them out if you need to make it more effective. You can group them all together and come up with just general issues that humans on the planet have. If you can't come up with human problems, I don't know where you're living, but I would like to move there with you. So you have a hero who has a problem, who meets a guide, and that's you. We just talked about how you establish yourself as the guide through authority, through empathy, right? Can I trust? Can I respect? And now it's your job in your marketing to give them a plan. Great plans do one of two things. They either clarify how someone can do business with you, or they're going to remove the sense of risk somebody might have. So you either need to clarify how somebody can do business with you or remove the sense of risk. Now, let me give you a good example. If you are part of our group at EXP, you were probably able to hop on one of John Gletch's masterminds where he talks about how he uses guarantees in his business. So he has guarantees that are like, hey, if you aren't satisfied with us, as far as being able to transact the way you want, Mr. Buyer, then we will give you our whole commission back, right? So John's approach has very much to do with removing the sense of risk in the process. I think that's great. It's not how I built my business. Mine is more focused on clarifying how someone can do business with you. So again, and I can't believe I'm going to keep doing this because I hate technology, but I want to take you back over to our website and share with you how we've done that on our website. You can see it clear as day right here on our website that we're Storybrand compliant. Why are you selling? We are talking right here. Here's the reasons why you're selling. Here's the problems. Here's your anxieties. Here's our plan, right? Following this plan can help you avoid costly mistakes that are quite honestly difficult to reverse. And literally right here, we tell them clear as day, we have a plan and we've got places for them to go execute that all day long. So the plan, I like to instead map out how are we going to do something versus removing that risk. Removing the risk though, just as effective. You should see John's business. It's huge based off of those guarantees. So here's a couple of plan options that you can use. A process to buy. You just saw that with ours. A process to use or a mixture of both. So let's talk about that. Number one, and this is where I think most of your marketing for your sphere of influence is going to come, is going to be what we call an agreement plan. So we're going to name these plans that show shared values to challenge the hero, right? So give you an example of this, like we have a great mailer that we've used in the past that talks about our core values. It's quintessential an agreement plan. I'm not trying to get them to buy anything. I'm not trying to get them to sell anything. I'm not trying to get them to click on anything. I'm not trying to get them to do anything of action. I just want a plan that confirms that I'm in agreement with my SOI. So this is where, if you've spent time developing those core values, this is an agreement plan strategy that you can use. It is 100% effective to send out core values to your SOI because it can give you an immediate agreement plan. Some other things could be, for those of you that are talking about high interest rates, you could easily send out some marketing that puts you in agreement that, affordability in America is tough. We've got problems here. We have things that that the housing market needs to be solving for our country. So you could do all kinds of things like that where you're just putting yourself in agreement with your SOI. The reality is, if we try to sell passively, we communicate a lack of belief in our product. So it's really important for you to figure out what kind of plan you want to use. I left agreement plan in here versus some of the strategic plans that actually have items in which you would go through and sell someone something, because I feel like this is the most pertinent to the SOI. But whatever you do in this marketing, it is really important that your voice is still active. This is just a tidbit across the board, especially with lead generation. We're really good about this. Like we go to open houses, and I'm getting out SOI, I'm getting more into just lead gen, but I think this is an important point of this story. We go into the kitchen, we have spent all week waiting to find a customer comes in, and then we feel like for some reason we're this like morally superior being by not bothering this person, right? How many of you have done this where you're like, I'm just gonna stand over here, you can just venture around. I'm like, call me if you need me, but like, I'll just be here. Like, I don't like to bother people at open houses. Terrible. When we do that, we actually are communicating a lack of belief in our product through and through. So whether it's a marketing piece to your SOI or sitting in an open house or whatever it may be, make sure that you are not trying to sell passively, right? None of this is to give you an out. This is 100% to put your messaging in front of people clearly, concisely, that gets their attention in 15 seconds or less. In your marketing, you can use call to actions. So you can use direct call to actions like buy now, right? So if you're sending out just listed postcards to a neighborhood, you can focus on a buy now option. If you're selling courses online, you can focus on a buy now option. This to me is not something that's used as common in SOI as a transitional call to action, right? A transitional call to action is a much softer call to action. You're basically just giving them a secondary option. Like, instead of saying, let's sell your home now, you're asking, would you like an equity evaluation on your property, right? It's not a join the Chamber of Commerce now. It's how about come to this event to learn a little bit more about what your chamber might do for you. This is definitely not the same as that direct call to action, which we use oftentimes in the wrong places. There's a lot of power in these transitional calls to action because, again, this is helping you position yourself as the guide. And the big thing here is helping them avoid failure, right? I think that's our next piece of the Storybrand marketing, is to help them avoid failure. And you're going to do this, right, by making sure that you're keeping them from being, you're reducing their vulnerability, you're keeping them out of harm's way through your call to action. Again, this is in every piece of Storybrand, everything you've ever watched, this is exactly what's happening, and then ultimately ends in success. And so it's very important to get them to that option of success. So again, I want to give you a couple examples of where we're using this in our marketing so that you can see it at play. So if we go over and we talk about home buyers vary in their preferences and needs, whatever the reason is, whatever challenges, right? This is our hero. We know that there are struggles in buying, right? Concerns often arise regarding the intricacies of the mortgage process, the ability to spot flaws in resale properties, and the challenge of making rational decisions rather than emotional ones. There's our problem. We have our plan that comes in, and we ultimately lead to success. I want to show you a couple of marketing pieces that we've used so you can see how clearly you can do this. See if I can find it without having to show you our entire Canva account. So these are our realty.com campaign was built completely around this. So let me see if I can find it. Sometimes I'm not smart enough to find things in my own Canva account. I may not be able to find it fast enough to show it to you. But we built an entire drip campaign around this premise, and essentially every single drip campaign that they get goes through this process. And I'm probably not gonna be able to get my hands on it fast enough to show it to you, but essentially from the very beginning, we show that there's a lack of affordability. So we're buying leads in the Sanford market. So we started right there and said, hey, did you know that this is a problem in your marketplace, right? That Sanford has skyrocketed over state averages. And we're showing them that affordability is an issue because we're buying primarily buyer leads in that market. The next piece of copy goes over to our plan, or it introduces ourselves. It's actually, it's just that picture that you have on our main website. And from there, we go into our plan that has our 3 steps. From there, we go into making sure that there are established guidelines for them to be able to go through that plan. We show them what they're avoiding, right? Having to maybe remain in a rental situation in a property that doesn't meet their needs. And then from there, we have a great graphic at the end, shows a family having a picnic in the backyard, and so much like warmer than, just your basic guides that I feel like we send out all the time in marketing. So I'll try to get that up and we'll put it in our presentation so you can go and take a look at it. But we use this across the board, whether it's lead generation, whether it's our SOI. I mean, this is just basic principles that we can use across the board on anything that we're working to market. So my big takeaways today would be, I would challenge you to look at your data set, look at all the subsections within your data set, and start identifying some of the problems that they have, right? What problems does your data set have? Make sure that some of your marketing that goes out establishes you as a guide. Be active in telling people that you're empathetic. Be passive in telling them that you're the authority, right? Give them a plan. Give them a clear and concise plan that shows them that you understand that that is what they are looking for. They're looking for a way to be the hero of their own story. Give them some transitional, in my opinion, with your SOI, some transitional calls to action, whether that be home equity evaluations, whether that be to get them set up on a passive search that they could use your search app to look for homes, whether it is to sign up to volunteer with an organization within your community, whatever that may be that meets the needs of that hero. So again, those calls to action that are much more passive, helping them avoid failure. So you do have to point out a little bit of what they could be missing if they don't take advantage of that, and then telling those success stories. Now, here's what's cool. You could build out a marketing piece that goes through this whole thing in one sheet. I think that's really cool. We do it. Or you could take an approach where, as you're planning your content calendar and your mailing calendars for the next couple of months on your SOI, that you actually break this out into a couple of pieces to keep them opening that mail. And I think that's really powerful. I think being able to take steps 1, steps 2, steps 3, putting that into a marketing piece that's followed up the following month with a little bit more of 4, 5, and 6, especially on email. I think you might check to see what that open rate would look like. But my big takeaway again is start here with your marketing. Stop figuring out, where does my content going to come from this month? What do they need to hear about? What do I need to share with them? Because it has nothing to do with you, and it has everything to do with their problems. And think how much more impactful you could be, especially, I mean, Kristen gave us such a great example. If she has her database set up, subdivided into major categories, and knows, okay, my marketing piece for December for this subsection is going to be this, solving this problem for them. Think about how much higher conversion rates would be if it wasn't a one size fits all. And listen, I'm here to tell you, I'm guilty of it. There are months where I'm like, I got to get something out. Here's something. I'm going to slap some land listings together on here and I'm going to throw them out there. But really, the better solution to that should have been, how can I explain the difficulty in families in America buying land because of financing issues or some of the unknowns about the process of it? And then how can I introduce myself as a guide and tell them that I understand this frustration because I've been through it myself personally, because I bought a piece of property and built a home on it. And then how can I tell them, because I just established authority, I just established empathy, and then how could I give them a plan saying, here are some lenders that we know in this marketplace that do this. Now, all of these components were on the sheet, but it wasn't organized in a way in which I would have had their attention in 3 seconds. So my challenge for you this week is going to be in those subsections that you've identified. In week 1, we started talking about that, and we went into a little bit more last week. In the subsections that you've found and you've categorized, what are some marketing pieces that you can create that will fit this? And I'd love to hear from some of you before we sign off, just to see if this is resonating, and if you've got some plans in place. And I don't want to put anyone on the spot. I might put Wendy on the spot if she's still on. I think she might have popped off, but oh no, you're here. I don't know if you're available to chat about it, but I'd just be curious, like, what are some subsections in your SOI that okay, in the next 4 to 6 weeks, here's some marketing that I could do that would follow this Storybrand compliant marketing, and that you think would have some good outcome. Anyone can jump in.
Hey, Anna. I don't know, is Wendy on or?
Not here, so I don't know. I know it's always hard when people are on Zoom, because I also do it. I'll just like walk away.
So I guess it kind of got my wheels turning a little bit, just on the sense of what we were talking about with my sphere, and kind of subdividing that database. And whereas it may not be a huge number, but I'm thinking, obviously, for my time frame and with these people, a mailer I can do right now is, just work on something, because I do now is going to be the time where all of these college kids are coming home for the holidays. So kind of like I know you're really enjoying that time with, your student kind of thing, like, kind of be soft in that way about, having that family time and kind of having everybody back maybe under one roof now, but that, I know you're already making plans for, next fall, and what does that look like for your student, and, just maybe some ideas of having conversations. I'm just rambling, but you're kind of following where I'm going with this.
I think you have a perfect example of how this can really work if you know those subsections. And I think that's amazing. That's amazing.
So now I just got to put it to action.
Well, good news. I'll help you with a plan.
So that my marketing piece isn't just that little ramble of what I just said, but I have the idea. The concept is, a softness about it, because I'm in that place too, right? Like, we're all looking forward to having those, those big people back in our house again. But, then kind of getting into the business side of it, on how we can also help, from a real estate and an investment and a financial standpoint too, right?
Yeah. Jim Bear, I'll put you on the spot. What subsections do you have that you feel like you might can solve now that you have this framework? I'll just say
definitely have some people I think I can focus on investing. I have some I think I can focus on, like, high dollar, like, over $1 million. And then I have a segment that's first time home buyers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Joe Turco came and spoke at the regional rally yesterday. Kristen and I were there, and one of the things that he touched on this, because he's like, what problems, especially he was talking specifically about breaking into the luxury market. And again, I know this transcends a little bit of our SOI training, but I think it's just so relevant on everything we do. He was talking about, how do you break into the luxury subsection in your market? And the point here was, solve problems that the wealthy have, right? How can you solve problems that the wealthy have? And one of the things he was talking about was, you can go look up and filter out properties that are worth over X amount of millions of dollars. You can see how long that they've held that, right? How long have they been holding that property? And do they potentially have some needs for some trust advisement on real estate transfers? And so like that's a problem that subsection has. He's in Boston. He talked about people with seawalls. And I was like, that is this. Like, he literally found a little subsection of his database that has probably a problem with this specific issue. And if you can target the marketing, I just think your conversions will be so much higher. Anyone else have a group that we can maybe help you brainstorm on while we're together? I've talked a lot today, so I'd love to stop talking. Just kidding. I love talking.
I actually do have a couple of single moms that are the one we talked about, and she kind of put it off now, my friend from 6 months ago that put it off. And then I have another one that was an open house lead. Her sister is trying to get her here from New Jersey. And they both are struggling with being able to get the children to transition.
Mhm.
So I don't know. It's not necessarily the affordability for them, but like, I don't want to identify the problem as, your ex is terrible, but
Yeah.
so it's being creative and just trying to capture a few of those women who really do need to take that step and just have the better.
Yeah. So the external what's the surface level external problem? They need to move. They need to move into a new
Mhm.
environment.
Yes.
And
That
that's
fresh
complex.
start.
That's the hard part here, right? Is that's complex already. But what you should be able to do easily, I would think, is at least become their guide, because there's such deep internal and philosophical problems that are following from that external problem, right? So what are some of those
Mhm.
internal problems that you think that they have?
The fear of stepping away from what's been comfortable, maybe.
Yeah.
And then, because when I said the word fresh start to my friend, she was like, oh my gosh, I just need that. But then she's being held back by her daughters. And then the other one her ex doesn't want to let her take the kids out of state. So it's just being able to take that step into that fresh start and clear their mind and start something more
There's
positive.
a lot of internal and philosophical problems there that you can speak to and work through. Those are real problems. Sometimes the external problem is so small you have to really dig to find the internal and philosophical problem. You don't have that problem there.
No, not with them. But
But maybe Andrea, like, find out what some of those kids' interests are, and then maybe you could research some businesses or services around here that offer that a similar thing. Like if they're into dance, find some studios. If they're into soccer, share a bunch of the different programs around here in our areas that maybe would, if the kids had a chance to take a peek at it, they might be like, oh, that actually looks pretty cool. And, not that your children are going to be making that final decision, but it helps, right? If they're open to it.
Yes.
Share
And
some of the things maybe they're interested in, or if they're older, you can kind of, talk about the opportunities in Raleigh for work and things like that. So maybe something like
that's
that.
good. That's really good. Thank you.
So I'll leave you with this. I just want to show you what it looks like, because I think sometimes it's always powerful to just see it in action. So I'm going to share my screen again, because I did find our marketing campaign. This is a drip campaign. So again, this isn't a print ad. This is digital delivery. And this is how we do Storybrand in a series. So this is targeted. This is, again, we have a subsection. We have realty.com leads in Sanford. So here it is. We understand that we have a hero that has a problem, and we're tapping into the problem right here. And some people don't love this because they feel like, oh, you're creating a problem where there's not one. No, this is reality, right? Look what Sanford home prices did over the last 2 years. Affordability is difficult. We know this data. We know that we're getting a lot of people in the 300s and 400,000s. That's the bulk of these leads that are coming through. So are you struggling to afford a home in the Sanford area? You aren't alone. We offer solutions to affordability. Contact us today to get your guide to home ownership. We have a very active call to action on this one, but this is, again, set up in a series. So this is our hero who has a problem, right? And then just to give them some context, we literally go through, and this is one of my favorite pieces of marketing that we've built, telling your story your way. We say, you are the hero of this story. This is the villain, right? Home prices, low inventory, interest rates are trying to stop you, right? But APRE has a plan. We have a list of a couple things here: off-market homes, down payment assistance, paid closing costs, commission, rebates, cancellation guarantees, right? So we're just giving them a little bit of a splash of things that we could do, some of that plan, to help you achieve wealth, stability, and home. So here we're giving them an overview of that whole story. That's the second piece that they get from us. Now we're going to go back. This is one of the most important pieces that we have. So now we're back to their problem, right? The problem is affordability. They want to buy a home, but we really do have to speak to some of the internal issues. So look at all these internal things that we've now put into writing for them to see. Is your home search causing frustration, self-doubt, distraction, financial stress, uncertainty, decision paralysis, anxiety, confusion, disorganization, right? We want to speak to that subconscious. It can't just be you want to find a house. They're not going to act on that. They will not act on the external problems. Just like Andrea is facing, they're not going to act on the fact that they want to move, but they're going to take action on those internal struggles. And so we want to highlight those. And some of you, again, won't like that. I'm a really positive person, but it is what makes sense. It's a sense-making device. This is one of my favorite. This is that philosophical problem. We wholeheartedly believe you should be able to afford backyard memories. That's one of our best reopens. People love that. That's a great piece of marketing. It tells the story very clearly. You should be able to afford backyard memories. You saw this on our website. Obviously, we think it's a good piece of marketing. Meet your guides. Empathy is one of our core values. We see you, we hear you, we know you. There's that active voice in empathy. And then here's our passive awards. Do you think they know what an EXP icon agent is? Absolutely not. They don't know what that is. Some of you might not know what that is. It doesn't matter. It's passive. Here's our plan. Strategize, streamline, succeed. 1, 2, 3. It's clear. It's concise, right? Real estate transactions are more complex than they appear on the surface. A bit of an iceberg. To avoid disaster, when we least expect it, our team will ask questions, develop a plan that is content rich. Streamline, guide you through the process with utmost empathy and care. There's that active empathy again. We won't stop there. We integrate the industry's best tools, processes, systems, and connections to help you win easier. There's a juxtaposition right there. There's that active empathy, and then there's that active authority right next to each other in number 2. Celebrating a winning outcome is our team's goal. Success means everything. The required attention of our team through step 1 and 2 of our plan will always result in success. Here's that little hint of that little hint of saving you from demise, right? The opportunity doesn't go away. It goes to someone else. I love that in real estate. And then this is our instant success. When you tell the story, don't skip this part, right? So this is, very much talking to the subconscious brain, like with the imaging. We have to be quick and clear on these because these are like randos that like have gotten into our world and we're putting them on a drip campaign. But how many of you think that you could start employing this in your SOI mailings, in your SOI conversations, and also in your lead gen to create better outcomes? Everyone, right? Everyone feels that way. All right, so Donald Miller's Storybrand, if you can, go read it, go implement it. Any questions or any problems people have that we can solve before we hop off of here and get you guys back into being great real estate agents at 12:30 on a Tuesday? Great. I'll make sure Haley sends out this slide deck so you can go through it. Donald Miller, Storybrand, very easy read. I'm gonna get off of here if no one has questions. Next week, come back with some subsections and some problems that we can solve collectively. Okay, signing off. Bye, friends.